We're going to begin in the center of our mat, back on track. And I have this new cork mat, which doesn't want to stay flat. But the more we practice, the better that will be, hopefully. Right, so we're going to start seated, ankles crossed. If you'd like to work into a half lotus or full lotus, if you're already feeling nice and flexible this morning, by all means, pop on into that pose. Otherwise, just ankles crossed is perfectly fine. We're going to just take a couple of breaths as we arrive on our mat. Sitting up nice and tall, roll the shoulders back and down, chin parallel to the ground. Going up tall through the crown of the head. Think length from the shoulders. And big inhales and exhales. Catherine getting to enjoy the big fresh air with each breath. And then we're going to squeeze those shoulders up. So on your inhale, you're going to squeeze the shoulders up towards your ears. And exhale, pull them down, 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 really actively pulling away from your head. Inhale, lift them up, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze into those upper traps. And exhale, pull them down, 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 like you're drawing your shoulder blades down into your back jeans pockets. Inhale, squeeze them up. And exhale, drop them down. Inhale, lift. Exhale, pull. Inhale, lift. And exhale, pull. We're going to do some forward circles. So we're going to go forwards, up, back, down with the shoulders. Big rolls. So you want to sort of round the back as you come forward. Squeeze it up as you just did. Squeeze them back towards your spine and then really draw them down. 2 more. And last. 1. And change direction. Back, up, forwards, down, big as you can. 4, 3, 2, and last 1. And down and back, chest open and lengthen through the crown of the head. We're going to take the head over to the right shoulder, taking the right hand, placing it just above the ear, easing the head down towards that shoulder, but keep the shoulder away from the ear. Left hand's going to reach around the back, or if you want to extend through those fingertips, which is a little bit more of a neural stretch, so play around with both. So if that feels like a better stretch, go ahead. Otherwise, tuck it around the back, making sure that your head's not falling down just yet. We're going to get there. We just want to lengthen, pulling your ear away from that left shoulder and lengthening straight down the side, so without any twisting and rotation just yet. And then gently release, dropping chin towards the chest, nose towards the armpit, moving the hand slightly to the back of the head. And you want to lengthen the base of the skull away from that upper trap shoulder blade neck connection. So a nice diagonal coming forwards over there. And gently release, floating back up. If you're very tight, it might be a little bit uncomfortable when you come back up, so really be gentle and kind to your body through those movements, even though it's just a neck stretch. We're going to take the head over to the left hand side. Again, keep the left shoulder away from the left ear. Left hand reaches up and over just above the ear to lengthen the ear and shoulder away from one another. Right hand reaches, fingertips pointing towards the floor, or tucks around the back. So when you tuck it around the back, there's more of a muscular stretch into the shoulders, but that neural stretch, because we have nerves running right down into the fingers, think carpal tunnel, golfer's elbow, those sort of nerves running right down through the arm, and even your nerves can get tight. So if you feel like this is offering quite a bit of relief, or it's just a really nice stretch, feel free to spend time in that stretch over there. We're going to drop the chin towards the chest, nose towards the armpit, hand to the base of the skull, lifting the head off the neck to lengthen into those upper trapezius muscles. The ones responsible for shrugging the shoulders up around your ears when you're working behind a computer screen or you're driving in traffic and the taxi driver just cut you off. Exhale and release that stress as the muscle releases the shoulder away from the head. And release, floating back up to center. Rolling the shoulders back just to reset and center the spine once more. We're going to lengthen the arms out in line with the shoulders, drop the shoulders down away from the ears. So again, if you're very tight and early, even for me right now, you feel it sort of radiating down into the arms, shoulders down. We're going to reach over to the right hand side, place the hand down in line with the right hip. Left arm reaches up, think length out of the rib cage and reach over to the side. So you can either reach it out at a diagonal or think big curve through the side of the body as the hand and fingertips reach towards the ground. Making sure that the left sit bone is connected to the floor. So everything from that hip bone all the way up the rib cage, into the lats, armpits, and as mentioned, right down into those fingertips, think length. Making sure the arm's not collapsing in front of the face, making sure you're not collapsing into your shoulders. The shoulders are supportive and stable as we lengthen out of the torso. From there, we're going to release that left hand down towards the ground. So you're taking your tummy towards the right knee. So you're extending those arms out at a diagonal. A nice, good size of pizza, perhaps, at that triangle shape. You should feel this a little bit more focused into the left lower back, into that nice little fleshy gap section between the hips and the crest of the pelvis. And we're going to unwind, stacking those shoulders back on top of each other. Oh, look at that, the flexibility improves. We float back up through center, left fingertips pulling you back upright. Adjust the shoulders just to make sure that they're always relaxed. Taking the hand down over to the other side. Top arm lifts, think length out of the rib cage and reaching through those fingertips. You can either stay off the elbow or drop it down depending on how your flexibility allows or which one gives you a better stretch. Being sure not to allow the hand to collapse in front of the face. Keep everything stacked and open, lengthening out of those fingertips. Like someone's pulling on your hand. And then floating, oh no, we forgot to fold that top arm forward out at that diagonal or triangle wedge shape. And I'm just noticing now, it's quite nice in my lower back on the other side, but this side's getting right into the hip itself. And that's pretty normal too, especially if the hips are quite tight. Maybe you're stuck up here, which is also pretty normal. But just exhale into your stretch, relax your head and shoulders, and allow the gravity to pull you down towards the floor. Unwinding the hand up, so you're stacking the shoulders and lengthening back up nice and tall. Shoulders are down away from the ears, keep them in check. We're twisting over to the right hand side. Take the left hand to the outside of the right knee, right hand to the ground at the base of the spine, propping yourself up tall and rotating around the waist, around the core. If you can get the right hand all the way around and tuck it into the left inner thigh, feel free to do that. Otherwise, using the hand behind you as supportive, grounded leverage to rotate the body. So what some people do over here is they just get the knee and they pull, and then they feel like that's where their stretch ends. That's relying just on the arm. But rather, think about opening your chest to the right hand side so you're wringing out around that spine. So the rib cage twists as well. So the arm that's pulling, it's not just locked out and tense in the shoulder. You can even pull the elbow backwards to help you open up the body. And the right shoulder is going to roll back to help you twist that little bit more. And release, coming back through center, extending the arms so you get a really nice swivel. You're going to rotate over to the left hand side, taking right hand to the outside of the left knee, left hand to the ground at the base of the spine. The more you prop yourself up nice and tall, the more space you create in the intervertebral spaces or intervertebral discs, which allows you to rotate even more. So we're allowing hydration to flow into those discs in between each vertebra, which helps you to get taller in theory. All about gravity making us shorter with age. The more you lengthen and rotate, the taller we should feel and maybe be. I have seen people grow when they start to exercise. Just 1 or 2 centimeters, nothing crazy. That's something to bear in mind if it is something you're worried about. And gently release. You're going to place the hands onto the knees. and firm grip on those knees. We're going to do some cat and camel breathing over here. So we're going to take an inhale, roll the shoulders back, think shoulder blades pinching towards the spine, heart lifts up towards the sky as you inhale, and as you exhale, you're going to tuck that tailbone, scooping into the back, scooping into the belly. Allow the shoulder blades to spread as you lean back. So the hands on the knees serve as anchors so that you spread those shoulder blades apart. Inhale, roll the shoulders back, squeeze them towards the spine. Belly button, chest pulls forward, so you're getting that little arch. And exhale, round it out, tucking the tailbone, scooping, stretching out that lower spine, which spends a lot of time in a tense, unmoving position. So let's think movement through this motion. Roll the shoulders back as you inhale, heart to sky. And exhale, round it out, hollowing your body around a big beach ball. Inhale, roll it back or arch it forwards. And exhale, tuck the tailbone, round it out. And we're going to do one more. Inhale, roll shoulders back, chest lifts up. And exhale, round it out. And the shoulders should still be away from the ears. So even as the hands are anchored and you're stretching those shoulder blades forwards, there's a downwards pull here happening as well, which should relax some of those tense shoulder muscles. And coming up to center, we're going to place the soles of the feet together and nice and tight in towards the body. So as close as you can get the heels towards you. You're going to interlace the fingers, sitting up nice and tall. Actively, so squeeze your glutes so the knees drop towards the ground. And we're going to lengthen up tall through the crown of the head for a nice straight spine. So think someone's poking you pretty much around your bra strap level, in between the shoulders. So stomach in, chest out, there we go. And we're going to use the elbows to pull, or use the hands to pull the chest forwards with a nice flat back. Elbows tucked to the inside of the knees or thighs, or just generally towards the floor, that direction. And we're lengthening, pulling out of those hips, grounding through the pelvis. Knees are opening, so we're stretching into those inner thighs, as well as working into the hip sockets themselves. And the tighter you are, the harder you have to pull, the more bicep strength you get. So it can also be considered a strength exercise. And gently release. We're going to send the feet slightly further forward into a nice big diamond. Hands are still around the feet. This time we're going to round the spine and trying to get the crown of the head in towards the soles of the feet, or big toes to forehead, or forehead to big toes, whichever one happens first, of course. So elbows tuck around to the front of the shins. We're rounding into the back as we curl the head towards the feet. So to change the stretch, the position of the stretch in as far as the hips are concerned, so it might not be as much into the inner thighs, or maybe it's more into the inner thighs, and should be as you're rounding and lengthening across the spine, you should feel more of a stretch down the back portion of the spine as well. And gently release, coming up to center. We're going to extend the right leg out to the corner of the mat, keeping the hips nice and open. So we have actually been doing quite a lot of legs forward folds, and there we want to keep the hips pretty closed and square, but here's an opportunity to open up those hips and work into those adductors. So yeah, time to get back into the adductor flexibility. The right toes are flexed up towards the ceiling. We're going to take the right hand down on top of the shin, or on elbow to the floor on the inside of the thigh. So if the elbow can't touch the ground, rather place that forearm flush along the shin. And we're going to slide that hand just to where it's comfortable, that the elbow doesn't start to lift. Then we're going to take the left hand to the shoulder, elbow reaches up to the sky to start that side bend out of the side of the body, and then extend the top hand towards the toes. So the inner thigh is already working, and now we're getting that side bend through the left waist into that rib cage, maybe into the lower back as well, and probably hamstrings. You're using the elbow on the ground to push and stack you open, so it's like another anchor to help you stack the shoulders, so that you're not allowing that top arm to fall in front of you, the shoulders are not closing off, everything is nice and open. Nice lateral bend over there. Using that top arm to draw you back up to seated, and then we're going to swivel around. So we're rotating through the core and waist, extending the arms towards the feet. And this is where we do want to try square off the shoulders, but they're keeping those hips firm into the floor. So shoulders square off. So we're getting that rotation through the spine here and a little bit of work. So trying to get those hands level. You don't want the one hand reaching further than the other. Then we're going to hinge out of the hips and reach for the foot. So if the hands only get around about the knee, that's fine. Still think length through the spine. Someone's poking between those shoulder blades as you reach the hands towards the foot. If you can grasp the foot, try and flatten it out against a brick wall. And shoulders are still down away from the ears. Chest is extending towards that shin. Breathing into your stretch. So as the muscles expand and release, we have space to send nourishing oxygen via the blood to the muscles as it releases. So good, healthy breaths, not holding our breaths. The belly is moving. And gently release, sliding back up. We're going to take the right hand to the outside of the left knee, left hand to the ground at the base of the spine, and getting another rotation in here. Don't allow the hips to lift off the floor, keeping the sit bones firmly planted into the ground, using the hand as leverage on the outside of the knee, and just rotate. Again, propped up nice and tall. Your spine is like an upright rod running from your sit bone or from your coccyx to the crown of the head, and we're just spinning around that as opposed to leaning back or rounding forwards. And gently release. We're going to take that bent leg, lift and plant it to the outside of the right thigh. Sole is firmly into the floor. Taking right arm, wrapping it around the left knee, left hand to the ground at the base of the spine, propping up tall, and then rotate once more. So if you're comfortable, confident, or flexible enough, if you're feeling nice and warm, you can take the elbow to the outside of the thigh or knee and bend that or bend the elbow so that the hand is upright, or you can just extend the hand towards the floor as well, if that's also fine. But making sure that that sit bone stays firmly planted in towards the ground. So it's a really nice glute stretch over here as that hip crosses over the body without the sit bone lifting, and then the nice stretch as you rotate around the spine itself. And gently release. We're going to extend the left leg out to the corner of the mat. Right foot comes in, or right foot in, then the left leg stretches out, depending how those hamstrings are feeling. Again, hips are nice and open, really opening up those inner thighs, those adductors. Taking the left forearm either on top of the shin or elbow to the ground, sliding a hand away just as much as you can maintain that full connection with the forearm. Taking right hand to shoulder, elbow reaches up to the sky to get that initial length out from underneath that armpit, and then extending through those fingertips. Using that bottom elbow to stack the shoulders open. Even think about lifting your heart up to face the ceiling. If you can get both hands to the ground, by all means. I think we'll advance this one next week. There's quite a fun one. There's quite a fun balancing sit position that comes out of this. So things to look forward to. And floating it back up, rotating the body so your shoulders are square towards that leg. You may find one side's a bit more difficult than the other. For me, it's this side is more difficult. So hands extended, squaring off those shoulders. Think length through the spine, hinging at that hip level as you reach the hands towards the foot. If they don't reach the foot, either side of the leg is fine. As you slide those hands away, shoulders down, as much as possible, try lengthen through the spine. So pressing the chest forward, popping between those shoulder blades or poking between those shoulder blades. Chin is tucked in, so there's no craning or jutting out from the chin. So no strain in the back of the neck, keeping it pretty neutral as you reach for a gorgeous hamstring and adductor inner thigh stretch. And maybe the lower back as well. And sliding it back up, taking the left hand, popping it to the outside of the right knee, right hand to the ground behind you, keeping your sit bone connected to the floor, rotating, wringing out the waist. So a really nice massage for those internal organs. Certain instructors might call it a bit of a detox. So yeah, there's different research and opinions about detoxing in general, so I won't go into that, but it does feel good, and it does feel like a nice wringing out of the abdomen. Remembering to propping up nice and tall, drawing up through the crown of the head to give you more space to rotate. And gently release, taking that bent leg, crossing it over the extended leg. So right foot plants firmly to the outside of the left thigh, keeping right sit bone connected to the floor. Left arm's going to wrap around the knee, right hand behind you to prop yourself up tall. The more you rotate, the less distance that elbow has to travel. So it requires that spine flexibility and also the shoulder flexibility to get the elbow to the outside of the knee. So if it's not there yet, no pressure, so long as you're getting that glute stretch and you're working on that twist and rotation. And gently release. We're going to undo that leg and extending now both legs either to the opposite corners of the mat or just generally apart is fine too. So maybe the feet don't stay on the mat and that's fine. We're working on it. So let's emphasize the position though. So if the legs are open, let's try challenge it by shifting the hips a little further forwards. But just working with what's comfortable for you. We're going to plant the hands, well, just that little bit uncomfortable because you do want to progress from here. So placing the hands on the ground in front of you, opening up those toes towards the ceiling. So sometimes that inner thigh tightness can rotate the feet forward. So let's use the muscles in the hips to actively twist the toes towards the sky. And then again, poking between those shoulder blades, string attached to the heart center, which is pulling you forward. So you have a nice flat back as the arms extend down to the ground. If comfortable, dropping onto the elbows, although you may need to walk the hands a little further forward in order to actually drop those elbows down to the ground. If you're feeling super flexible today, you can extend all the way down into your pancake where your tummy and chest will be on the floor and you can sort of stretch everything down. For me, not so much today. I'm quite happy working here, and there's still room. So I could maybe reach further forward, but my toes are going to start drifting in. So I'm going to work on actively rotating those hips open, which already increases the stretch on the inner thighs to keep the toes up to the ceiling without having to push myself too far forwards. And the more I extend and flatten my back, the more it's stretching the inner thighs as well. So you have different rooms within each pose. You have room within each different pose to intensify it without having to necessarily move deeper into the position. So just by being more active in certain portions of it, either the hips or the back, you can intensify the stretch, which will help to improve the flexibility. And then pressing the hands underneath the body to come back up to seated, grasping the outsides of the knees to bend the knees first and then gently bringing them back to center. So we spent quite a lot of time there and that was quite intense. Let's swing both feet around. So we're going to come over into our box position. So hands are underneath the shoulders, knees are underneath the hips, so there's at least a fist distance between those knees. Shins are parallel to one another, making sure your hands are not too far forwards in front of you. If they are, we have a tendency to round the shoulders up around the neck and ears, so keep those hands straight underneath the shoulders. If you can see yourself in the camera, it's a good opportunity to check your alignment. Tops of the feet are flat on the floor. We're going to tuck the tailbone, really flexing into those lower abdominals to tuck that tailbone under and then start to round the back. Hands press into the floor, so strengthening those shoulder blades as they spread apart from one another. Chin tucks in towards the chest. Be sure not to round the shoulders up towards the ears, but keep them actively pulling towards the bum and then spreading apart from the spine. Lifting the tailbone, allowing that tummy to tip forward or tip down to the ground, rolling those shoulders extra back and down towards the bum as you lift the chin up. So we also have a tendency to allow our head to drop and then we look forwards and we have no neck. So think lengthening through the neck and then extending the back of the head towards the hips. Big aim on the shoulder blades squeezing together over here because of all the time spent rounded behind a computer screen. This is where we're working against it. Tucking the tailbone, squeezing into those lower abdominals, rounding into the back. Hands press into the earth as the chin tucks in towards the chest. So we're getting that stretch around the back of the neck, that little bit more. And exhale, dropping tummy to floor, roll shoulders back and down. Think length through the neck, back of the head's pulling towards the hips. Think long and open collarbones. Inhale, round it up. We're going to do 2 more. Exhale, arching it down. Inhale, rounding it up. Think about tucking your rib cage in towards the hips and the hips in towards the ribs, and the belly button wants to hide away from both. So it's pulling up towards your spine. And then exhale, belly button drops down, roll shoulders back, open chest, no collapsing in the shoulders, slide in the way, and release. We're going to place big toes together, open up the knees to the outside edge of the mat, pull the hips back towards the heels and stretch those arms out in front of you, melting chest and tummy between the legs. So we're getting a nice extension out of the rib cage, armpit sort of area, but more specifically the lats. And we're going to intensify that now. So you're going to walk both hands over to the left-hand side of the mat, tummy to left thigh, reaching out of that right hand as it extends away from you. You should feel an increased intensity over the right rib cage. And the more the hips pull back towards the heels as well, you'll feel that expansion between top of the hip bone and the lower ribs on that right-hand side as well. If it's not too tight, you might not feel it, but if you have a little bit of lower back tightness, that's pretty much where you should feel this as well. Inhaling also intensifies that, so big breath in, stretch the ribs, and you should increase the stretch there, and exhale. And we're going to walk the hands over to the right-hand side, taking tummy to the right thigh, extending that left arm away from you as the hips continue to pull down to the heels. Chin is tucked in, so your neck is pretty neutral, fairly relaxed. If you're comfortable putting your head on the ground, maybe you're very tight and your head doesn't reach the ground, that's okay. So long as you're not holding any tension in the neck. Probably had enough tension from the course of the week, so just allow it to let go. And then walking back to center. Bringing the hands back underneath the shoulders, hips shift back over the knees, and we square off those knees. Again, hip distance apart, are parallel to one another. We're going to plant the weight, or plant the strength firmly through the right hand. Left arm's going to reach up towards the ceiling. So we're stacking those shoulders, extending the left hand towards the sky as we rotate the body. There we go. So the right hand is helping to twist you open. And then exhale, reach that arm through underneath that right armpit, so we're threading that needle. So we're twisting some more, but in the opposite direction. Inhale, stack the shoulders open, extending fingertips towards the ceiling, lifting chest to sky, and gaze towards that hand as it lifts up. And exhale, stretching it through. Inhale, stack, open it up. And exhale, stretch it through. Last 2, inhale, stack, open chest. Exhale, rotate through. And last 1, strong through that supporting arm to increase the rotation. And exhale, reach it through. This time we're going to come all the way through onto the left shoulder, left ear. And then we're going to reach the right arm up towards the ceiling. So you're creating a great big capital L shape with the arms. If it's too intense to lift that top arm to the sky, you can keep the hand just in front of the face and use the hand to press you more open. So the hips and knees are firmly planted into the ground, and then we're rotating again out of that rib cage. There's quite a lot of rotation happening today, an unexpected amount of rotation, but it feels good, so we're going with it. And releasing that right hand to the ground, pressing through to get the left hand firmly to the floor as well. Now left hand is underneath left shoulder, shoulders always away from the ears, and right arm is going to reach up, extending towards the ceiling. So you find that strength through the left arm to help you stack the shoulders, and then reaching right arm through underneath the left armpit. Inhale, stack the shoulders, reaching right fingertips towards the sky. And exhale, wringing out the waist again for 2. Inhale, stack and open. Exhale, rotate 3. Inhale, open it up. Exhale through for 4. And then one last one. Inhale, open. And exhale, stretch it all the way through, coming to line your right shoulder, right ear. And again, left hand can stay in front of the face to help you stack open, or you can extend the left arm up towards the sky, reaching through those fingertips. If you're comfortable and confident that your shoulders are stacked, but you still want to intensify the stretch, you can allow that hand to drop back a little bit more. But see how you feel. It can be pretty, just this L shape, working to get the back of the shoulder itself just flat against your imaginary wall. If you want to open up that shoulder and chest, because you feel like it's not stretching enough, by all means. Not for me today. Placing the hand underneath the face, pressing yourself up into your box once more, and we're just going to walk the arms forward into your puppy pose. So keeping the hips directly above the knees, those arms are going to stretch forward, you're going to melt the chest towards the ground, and stretching out of those armpits through the arms. Whilst we're here, we also have a tendency to think, oh, chest to ground, let's see how I can make it happen, and then we allow that lower back to just collapse completely. The focus of the stretch is actually the upper back and arms, so see if you can play around with tucking the tailbone and forcing the stretch, not forcing, but working the stretch through the upper back instead, and then those abs get a bonus workout to keep the tailbone tucked against our natural tendency to allow it to arch. So tailbone's tucking, melting chest towards the floor, and maybe you're stuck all the way up here and that's enough stretch, which is fine, but even there you can work on tucking the tailbone so that the focus comes out of the shoulder blades, arms, rib cage, lats, armpits, that widening down the length of the body. We're going to shift forwards onto our forearms, extending the legs and coming to lie on our tummies. So you should be pretty firm on the floor. There we go. Nice. Roll the shoulders back. Hands are underneath the shoulders. Feet and legs are firmly planted into the floor. Drawing the elbows towards the hips so the shoulders pull away from the ears. We're going to take an inhale, lift the chin and chest away from the ground. Hands float up alongside the head. So we're squeezing towards those shoulder blades, and those shoulder blades are pulling you higher and higher off the ground. And exhale, allow the chin and chest to lower down. We're going to do 2 more of those. This time I want you to try and keep that pelvis pressing into the floor, legs glued into the floor, and think if you can pull your belly button away from the ground as you inhale and lift. It's quite a balancing act when you try and keep that tummy engaged, but it really focuses the work and the effort, the muscle effort, into that upper back instead of creating tension in the lower back. And release. And last one, inhale, keeping the chin tucked in. We lift, floating that chest away from the ground. Keep that tailbone tucking under. Belly button's trying to pull away from the floor. And exhale, release. Hands underneath the shoulders. Tucking the toes. We're going to pull the hips back towards the heels. So we're getting a nice stretch across the soles of the feet, stretching through arms as the tummy melts to the thighs. And then we're going to extend the legs up towards the ceiling for our first downwards facing dog. Our very first one. It's taken us like 40 minutes to get here. So we're going to pedal out those feet one at a time, dropping the heels, working into those hammies. Although the hammies are pretty loose now. Maybe it's more the calves that are getting a stretch out of this particular motion. So we're shifting hips side to side. So a slower class, whilst not necessarily as, I don't want to say as tiring, but as cardiovascular demanding, forces you to be a little bit more intentional and feel where your stretch and tightness is focused, and just being aware of where the work is happening, where your body may have limitations. It's also quite nice to notice where you're improving as well, because sometimes you don't get to spend enough time in a new posture that you notice the improvements. So we're going to settle the heels down here and take note, just as an example, of how close those heels can get to the ground. Knees are straight, tailbones lifted to the sky, dropping out of those shoulders. Maybe those arms are working pretty hard by now. I'm just going to take a deep breath in. Chin is tucked in so the neck is neutral with the rest of the spine. And then we're going to walk the feet to the front of the mat, nice and gentle, bending the knees as needed. Hands were firmly into the ground until the feet are at the top of the mat. Then your chin is tucked in, arms are hanging down towards the ground. You're going to tuck the tailbone and roll your way up one vertebra at a time, squeezing the hips forward so you're not just hinging everything backwards. and roll it up, and roll the shoulders back. We're going to inhale, reach the arms up towards the ceiling, interlacing the fingers above the head, turn the palms to the sky, press those palms up whilst keeping the hips squeezing forwards. Ribcage is pulled in and we're expanding into that upper back as the arms pull behind the ears. As you exhale, you're going to float the arms, so you want to reach them like a really big open circle across the chest and reach the hands around the back. Again, interlacing the fingers. This time we want the palms to stay firmly touching. If they don't stay together, that's fine. The tighter your shoulders, the less likely that is to happen. But let's roll those shoulders back and open. Lengthen the hands down towards the floor, the knuckles pulling down towards the ground, and then lift the hands away from the bum. So big chest opener over here. Stretching through the front of those shoulders, big squeeze in that upper back, bonus activation through those upper back muscles, which is pretty cool. And the glutes are squeezing forward too, so there's no arching and collapsing in our lower back. The tummy is stabilizing that spine. Chin can lift up. Let's lift the hands a little higher away from the hips. And gently release the hands and shoulders down, lengthening fingertips towards the ground. We're going to tuck the chin in towards the chest, real slow. Shoulders round forwards, we're rounding into that upper back. Tummy pulls in so the ribcage can sort of tuck around the tummy. And with the knees softly bent, we're going to reach the fingertips down towards the ground. Crown of the head's pulling you towards the floor. We're going to, once the hands are almost to the floor, we're going to bend the knees so you can get, we're going to find your way to tabletop. I was trying to make you stretch your hamstrings with totally bent knees. That wasn't going to work. So we're coming to a tabletop. Legs are pretty straight, not too hyperextended, but definitely straight. Shoulders roll back away from the ears, back of the head's in line with the hips. So there's no jutting forwards and we're not looking out ahead either. As you exhale, you're going to fold forwards, bend the knees nice and low, tummy to thighs. Brush the fingertips along the floor, reach the arms forwards and up. We're extending into that upper back for our chair pose. Knees stay bent in a nice deep squat. Extending on a diagonal. But if you can keep your knees behind your toes and lifting all the way up to an upright, not diagonal, then I'm impressed. That's basically, I'm impressed. Exhale, swan dive, folding forwards, connecting hands to the ground. We take the right foot to the back of the mat. Opening into those hips. So the right leg is extended. Left knee directly over left ankle. We're just going to sink the hips as low as we can get them. I'm going to spend a few seconds here. So if you feel like your leg and arm length is not quite working for the stretch, you can take the hand to the inside of the legs and then see if you can get those hips a little lower now that your body is not in the way on the thigh. Just, one less excuse. Now you can rock forwards and backwards. You can shift that front leg side to side as you sort of wiggle out of that tension. Planting the right hand firmly to the floor, we're going to extend the left arm up towards the ceiling. So we're rotating towards that bent leg. Strong in that supporting arm. Back leg's extending away from the ground, which increases the stretch of that right hip flexor. If having the arm up is too much rotation, maybe it's causing some cramps. I'm getting a little cramp just below my rib cage over there. Breathing into it does help, but if it's too much, you can have the hand behind the back. We're going to release the hand down to the floor, dropping the left foot down to 45 degrees at the back of the mat. Not left foot, right foot. Right foot's at a 45 degree and the back leg is nice and straight. We're just going to cartwheel straight up to warrior two. Reaching the right hand to the back, left arm floats up to the front. Left knee is still over left ankle. Be sure to not let it drop inwards. Tailbone tucks. Hips are nice and open. Shoulders will drop down away from the ears, extending those fingers in opposite directions. Be sure not to collapse too far forward, but keep the body centered between both legs. Front toes are relaxed. Maybe you're digging into the ground with that front foot. Maybe you have a tendency to do extra calf raises where you shouldn't. Drop the right hand down to right calf, left arm reaches up and over to the back of the mat. Extending through those fingertips. Keeping that left knee nicely bent. And this is finally a little bit of work. Everything else has been a piece of cake up to here, of course. Different. These big muscles need way more oxygen, so that's why it burns more. Floating back up through your warrior two. We're going to cartwheel down either side of the front foot. rolling onto the ball of the back foot, dropping that back knee down, unflip the toes. You can press both hands to that front leg and pull your tummy away from that front thigh as you stretch into that right hip flexor. The more you tuck the tailbone and pull tummy away from that thigh, the more it's going to stretch over that hip and pull less in the back as well. And remembering, you can fold your mat over if you feel extra pressure in the knee, and you can push that top foot down, top of the foot down to lift the knee off the ground to reduce some of that pressure as well. We're going to fold forwards, hands either side of that front leg, pull the hips back over the right knee as you extend the left leg. Squaring off the hips as much as possible and lengthening through the spine. Think flat back as your chest extends towards your shin. That tailbone is lifting away to lengthen that hammy that little bit deeper. And then we shift the body forwards once more, taking both hands to the inside of that left leg again. You can either roll to the outside of the ankle, or if the ankle doesn't like it, no pressure, you just push the knee open. So we can work the hips down to the ground, getting a little more of an inner thigh stretch and a glute opener over here. So if it's comfortable to roll to the outside of that foot, because sometimes I can give you a slightly bigger rotation. And then either using your hand to push the knee open or supporting the body with both hands so that you can sink a little bit deeper in a more supported way. So see what feels good for you today. See which one challenges your flexibility that little bit more. And then rolling back onto the sole of the foot. Hands either side of that front leg. You can either tuck the toe and lift the knee, or you can keep the knee down on the ground so you can swing this left leg out behind you. So doing whichever variation so you can get back into a plank nice and safely and comfortably. So otherwise, right knee off the floor, hands firm, and step it back. Mostly simple. We're going to shift the weight forward so the shoulders move over the fingertips. If your wrists are really sensitive, they might not like this so much, so keep it back. And then if you need to lower the knees, now is the time for a really nice slow chaturanga, or knees, chin and chest. But we want to keep those shoulders as forwards as we possibly can so that when we bend down, so you can start lowering with me, we want the elbows over the wrists as opposed to shoulders over the wrists, and lower all the way down to the floor. Untuck the toes, roll the shoulders back, chin is tucked in, press up for your cobra. Keeping the pelvis connected to the ground, belly button's pulling away from the floor, shoulders are rolled back and open, think open chest. Tucking the toes, pull the hips back, stretching out the arms, and then lift the hips up towards the ceiling for your down dog. We're going to lift the right leg up towards the sky. Give it one quick pulse to activate that glute, lifting a little higher. Lifting up onto your left toes, bring your right knee tight in towards your chest. Strong through the arms as you round the body forwards to step that foot to the front. So the stronger we press through the arms, the more space there is to plant the foot at the front. And then we're in a nice big extended high lunge legs. And we're going to do our little forwards and backwards rocking. Stretching through the calves, and again, the legs in the way, both hands to the inside of the leg as you shift forwards and backwards, sinking the pelvis to the ground, but keeping the knee away from the floor. Shifting that right knee open if necessary. Got a little, like a tendon that's stuck, and just want to get it over the bone so I can sink a little deeper. And centering and stilling the body. Left hand under left shoulder, right arm's going to reach up towards the ceiling. Little final postural rotation over there, extending through those fingertips, hips sinking down to the ground. And releasing it back to center, dropping the left foot down to the floor. We cartwheel left hand up and over to the back of the mat, warrior two. Palms turned down to the ground, fingertips extended, right knee over right ankle, tailbone tucked so that pelvis is upright. Nice. Such beautiful warriors. Love it. Keeping that right knee bent a little bit deeper if you can, dropping left hand down to left calf, right arm reaches up and over to the back of the mat. Reversed warrior. Without losing that right knee bend. Hold it at 90. If it's burning, you're doing it right. Just breathe, sending all that oxygen. And floating back up through warrior 2. And cartwheel down either side of the front foot. Roll onto the ball of the back foot. Drop the back knee down and flip the toes. Hands to the front thigh, pressing yourself up. Pulling your tummy away from that front hip. The diagonal definitely works better for this sort of thing. I feel like my arms are all in the way of my body over here. I don't know how to move them. So tailbone tuck, so pulling, extending over that hip flexor. Folding forwards, one hand either side. We're going to straighten out that right knee, just pointing the toes so we get that bonus stretch across the top portion of the foot. Tailbone extends, flat back, shoulders back and down, chin tucks in. Squaring off the hips. There's a lot of wiggle room for the hips over here. So being mindful of that and working into your stretch in the most effective way for your body today. And then shifting forwards, taking both hands to the inside of the leg, rolling to the outside of the foot and pressing either hand into knee or supporting the body with both hands as the pelvis sinks down to the ground. And maybe it's a side to side shift that helps you stretch better, or maybe it's just straight down that gets you the best stretch. Rolling back onto the sole of the foot, tuck the toes. In actual fact, let's take that right foot to the back so we're in our box position, and then we're going to roll onto our bums and the legs are straight out in front of you. So just coming to a seated position in whatever comfortable way suits you best. We're going to stretch the arms out in front, tuck the tailbone, and roll your way down one vertebra at a time, all the way flat onto our backs. We're going to bring right knee in towards the chest, give it a little tug, and stretch the right arm along the floor. Left hand to the outside of the knee, crossing the knee over the body. And a final rotation stretch through the spine. Keeping the right shoulder connected to the floor. If you'd like to gaze over the right fingertips. Maybe it increases the stretch. And coming back to center, stretching out that right leg. Left knee comes in, give it a little squeeze. And then left arm stretches out in line with the shoulder. Left knee crosses over to the right side of the body. Right hand is on top of that knee to help it a little by little, down to the ground. So the whole pelvis is rotating, pulling out of that lower back. And drawing it back up to center, bending both knees, placing them firmly on the ground. We take right ankle, cross it over left knee, reach through for the back of the left thigh, grasping it firm as you pull the knee towards the body. Using your right elbow to the inner thigh of the right leg as you push the knee open to increase the stretch over the right glute. The more you untuck that tailbone, really digging it in towards the floor, the more it's going to stretch into that bum as well. And releasing the foot down, popping right foot down on the ground, left ankle crosses over right knee and pull the right knee towards the body. Yeah, plopping just doesn't quite work for the yoga vibe, eh? Although maybe that's how we feel when the feet go down, or we go down, plop on the floor. Sorry. And releasing the feet down to the ground. Knees stay bent, shuffling both feet to the outside edge of the feet. Drop both knees over to the right side, place the right foot on top of left knee, allow the knees to fall to the floor, squeezing the tummy tight to stretch over that left hip flexor. So the more you squeeze the tummy, the more you're working that lower back towards the floor, the more it's going to increase the stretch right across that hip joint. And release the foot down, lifting both knees up, adjusting the lower back, feet nice and wide and close to the bum. Both knees fall over to the left foot on top of right knee, pulling the knees to the ground. Tummy tightens to posteriorly tilt that tailbone, so you almost get that tailbone tucking under. to stretch over the hip flexors there. Hip flexors being muscles that are in a shortened position all day when you spend the time sitting. Releasing the foot, lifting the knees up. Bring your not right knee, both knees in towards your chest. So we're rolling like a ball to come up to seated. So you're going to tuck your knees towards your chest, round the back, and roll all the way up. So the more roundness and the closer you get your chest towards the knees, the less clunky the movement tends to be. Crossing the ankles out in front of you, just going to stretch those arms forward, melting tummy to thigh, chest towards the ground with those ankles crossed. Walking the hands back towards you, other ankle crosses to the front, and reach those arms out ahead of you. And sliding the hands back upright. Thank you so much for joining me on this semi-chilled class this morning. I hope you feel like you got a good stretch, and I will see you all in the coming week, and we'll have some big announcements coming this week, so keep an eye out on the group for that.